All right, good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to this agriculture informational session being presented by the Wyoming Business Council. My name is Warren Appel. I'm going to be your facilitator today. Just want to cover a few housekeeping matters, and then I'll turn things over to Jill to introduce our panelists today. Written questions may be submitted using the webinar chat box, or excuse me, via the Q&A tool on the webinar. Please do not use the chat box. The Q&A tool helps us keep better track of who's asking questions and allows us to get responses back to you after the fact if we're not able to get to those questions today. Panelists, please keep your microphone muted at all times when you're not speaking and keep background noise to a minimum. This is both a courtesy to all of our folks attending today, but will also help us ensure we have good audio in our recording. And yes, this meeting is being recorded. We will make it available online via our website, wyomingbusiness.org, as well as the Wyoming Business Council YouTube page as soon as possible. With that, I will hand you off to Wyoming Business Council Agribusiness Development Manager Jill Tregemba to get us underway. Jill?
Thank you, Warren, and a big thank you to everyone who helped pull this together on very short notice. Thank you to the Ag Subcommittee, of course, our panelists and the staff at WBC. Farmers, ranchers, ag community, this webinar is designed for you. Agriculture is very important in the state of Wyoming and the strength of our communities. We recognize these are hard times, there's confusing messaging, and of course a lot of uncertainty. Yet you get up day after day and take care of your livestock, plant your crops, work your fields, and manage the many tasks within your businesses. Thank you. We've had many questions surrounding the CARES Act, COVID-19 action, and what does that mean to you in ag? Today, we will communicate the latest information from the federal and state agencies on our panel today. Thank you for joining our webinar. With that, I will turn it over to USDA Rural Development State Director, F.E. Wally Walski. Wally?
It looks as though we may have lost a couple of our panelists there for a moment. We do know that there's been some CenturyLink internet issues today, so that may be affecting some of them. We appreciate everyone's patience.
Wally is logging back on. It appears he did get disconnected. So let's just give him a second here and see if he pops right back up for us.
Looks like you managed to make it back, Wally. The floor is all yours.
Okay, thank you. First of all, thanks to Jill and good afternoon, everyone. I'm Wally Walski, USDA State Director for Rural Development. I'm a member of Governor Gordon's COVID-19 task force on the business and finance, and also sit on the Ag Subcommittee. I'm a lifelong farmer from Goshen County and a former livestock producer. Before we get started, I want to tell you a little bit about Mr. Sonny Perdue. In 2017, he was appointed as the 31st Secretary of Agriculture and previously served as Governor of Georgia for 8 years. He is a veterinarian by trade and grew up on a dairy farm. Secretary Perdue is uniquely qualified because of his hands-on knowledge of both livestock and crop production. At this time, I want to share a short introductory message from Sonny. Please roll the video.
Hello again, I'm Sonny Perdue, and for all you producers on the front line out there, again, farmers, ranchers, American Farm Bureau Federation, National Farmers Union, all your trade associations. You know there's a lot more uncertainty in the market this spring than there ever has been before. But I want to thank you for being the patriots that you are and continuing to do what you do. That's put the seed in the ground and grow our food. And I want to thank you. You know, President Trump recognizes you as the backbone of the spirit of America that's grown this great country, and you're doing it again today in this national emergency. I couldn't be prouder of you. I couldn't be prouder to be called a farmer and be part of your fraternity that gets the job done just like you do day in and day out. So keep it up. Stay by the stuff. I want you to know we've got your backs, and we're going to try to watch out for you to make sure you're all protected in any kind of thing that comes along in the future. So thank you. God bless you. And I hope you have a great crop in 2020.
I'm back up.
Yes, sir, you are.
Okay. Thank you. I had the pleasure of meeting Sonny shortly after coming aboard with USDA, and I want to assure all my fellow ag producers from around the state that Sonny is one of us and truly understands not only the value of farmers and ranchers producing food, but is also keenly aware of the many challenges we encounter on a daily basis. As everyone is probably aware, the CARES Act provides billions of dollars of federal assistance to American businesses, but specifically prohibited farmers and ranchers from applying. However, in the latest economic stimulus package, farmers and ranchers were included and authorized to seek assistance. Then just 3 days ago, it was announced that $195 million from the second tranche was being committed to the ag sector through small community lenders. So the purpose of this webinar is to provide ag producers timely, up-to-date information from both federal and state agencies pertaining to financial assistance opportunities through the Paycheck Protection Program or economic injury disaster loans. So without any further ado, I'll turn it back to Jill to introduce our presenters.
Thank you, Wally. That was a great video. Thanks for sharing that. We do have a great lineup of panelists for you today. Thank you all for clearing your schedules on really such short notice to make this happen. Today you will get to hear from Wyoming Department of Ag Deputy Director Stacia Berry, Natural Resources Conservation Service Acting State Conservationist Rusty Swartz, Farm Service Agency Director Lois Van Mark, SBA Wyoming District Office District Director Amy Lee, and then Wally will give a report on USDA rural development at the end. So Deputy Berry, would you like to kick us off, please?
Yes, I would be happy to. And thank you, Jill, for inviting the Department of Ag to be a part of this discussion today. I'm going to give you all a brief rundown of some important updates from a Wyoming Department of Agriculture perspective on things that are happening with handling COVID-19 issues that may be important to know as you interface with some of these federal issues as well. So the high points I'd like to hit for everyone this afternoon is, first of all, in our Consumer Health Services Division, as you can imagine with a lot of the orders that have gone out over the last 6 or 7 weeks, there's a lot of unrest, not only in our restaurants as well as our meat plants. We as a department are not doing regular inspections. Instead, we have turned the activities of our staff in that division from regulatory to technical assistance. So we've been working very hard with restaurant owners in a variety of capacities if they're trying to sell surplus food, donate surplus food to make available to food banks. We've really tried to have our staff offer their technical expertise for everyone from a restaurant to a food bank. And very importantly, we have kept going our Wyoming State Meat Inspection Program, which is likely of interest to many of you producers out there. Given some of the backlogs in the large plants in other states, we have worked hard to make sure that we offer as much inspection availability as the plants that we have in the state need. And so it's important to note for any of you that are trying to work with your state inspected meat plants, our inspectors are there, and given the capacity that they have, are trying to offer as much inspection availability as possible. And so those are probably the two biggest pieces that's important to know from a state perspective on the Department of Agriculture and our Consumer Health Services Division. Second, I wanted to bring to your attention a few things as producers that may be important to you in our Technical Services Division. And that is, we did early on in March issued a waiver for winter fuel blends to summer fuel blends, allowing for a delay in the changeover of those fuel blends because of the decreased traffic and fuel usage. So if you want to see that, it mirrors federal guidelines, but that waiver has been issued and is effective through this spring. Also, we've worked with the Wyoming Department of Transportation to assist in requests to them for hazardous material exemptions so that different trucks can haul larger loads because of the decreased workforce availability, to make sure that we assist in every way possible in keeping that food supply chain moving. Also, our pesticide applicator education and verification program has been allowed to be remote this spring. So for those of you that need to get a pesticide applicator license, there is an ability to do that training and that verification in a remote fashion so that you don't have to come into the offices like you had to traditionally do. Additionally, we continue to do our weights and measures inspection. So anything sold by weight or volume, whether it be the bananas in Walmart or cattle that need to be moved, all of those scale inspections as well as fuel inspections are continuing, and we have not seen any delay in those. So those keep moving. Finally, on a policy side, we continue to engage with the National Association of State Departments of Agriculture at the highest level to interface with our partners at USDA. Like Secretary Perdue mentioned in his video that Wally shared, he is a huge advocate for agriculturalists across the country, and from the very beginning, USDA has really engaged with this agriculture, hearing our concerns about monies that producers would need to make sure that PPP money would be available to them, that the SBA would be able to send dollars to producers' way. And there have been a lot of questions from an agricultural perspective, but as a department, we continue to engage through NASDA with our partners at USDA, not only on funding issues, but also on meat supply chain issues and investigations there, and have seen really a lot of cooperation from our federal partners, which we're really grateful for. Additionally, on the policy side, we work closely with the Wyoming Livestock Board to issue some guidance for livestock markets during this time. I know that the quarantine order will lapse tomorrow, but we tried to help producers understand how to interpret that, and then how for livestock markets to best continue doing their business while following state orders. So those are some of the largest things that we're seeing from a state perspective, but then also trying to really direct producers towards any of those federal funding opportunities that you'll hear about from some of our other speakers. So if you do have any questions about any of the things that I have mentioned or want more information, please feel free to go to the Wyoming Department of Agriculture website or reach out to me directly. I'm happy to connect you with anyone in our department that you need help from, or answer any questions as I am able. So Jill, I know that we'll take questions at the end, but that's what we have to share from the Department of Ag.
Thank you, Stacia. I know you guys have been very busy at the department, so appreciate your time today. And yeah, there probably will be some questions at the end. Moving on, let's move over to NRCS with Rusty Swartz. If you wouldn't mind taking the floor, Rusty, please.
Sure. Thanks, Jill. And thank you and Wally both for the invite. As mentioned, my name is Rusty Swartz. I'm currently the acting state conservationist for NRCS for the state of Wyoming. I'm a lifetime Wyoming resident. I've spent my entire career here in Wyoming trying to help and assist the landowners across the state with their conservation needs. So the Natural Resource Conservation Service is a federal agency that's charged with assisting private landowners with addressing their resource concerns on private land on a voluntary basis. We also hold the responsibility of administering many farm bill programs that provide us financial assistance to help landowners achieve those goals. As far as the COVID situation goes, there's one specific area in which the agency is trying to help landowners, and luckily we haven't had a huge call for it yet in Wyoming. But through the Environmental Quality Incentive Program, we're offering an emergency animal mortality management sign up. And this is really for those landowners that are faced with the dilemmas of depopulation of hogs and swine due to some of the packaging plants shut down and et cetera. We offer payments in those regards for helping with the burial, the carcass disposal, incineration, or the landfill disposal. If you or anybody you know may be facing with that situation, I would certainly just encourage you to go to any of the local NRCS field offices. We have representation in every county throughout the state. So go in, give them a call, let them know, and we can work out the details to get you signed up for that program. Probably, I think one of the most valuable things NRCS has to offer is something we offer all the time, and that's the ability to assist the landowners in the state with any of their resource needs on a technical level at any given time. So as landowners go through some of the challenges they're faced with today, and they find they need to maybe evaluate their resources to adjust their grazing plans or their irrigation water management plans or things of that nature, we have professionals in the field all the time to assist with that if you so choose to utilize. We still, even through the pandemic, we have employees at every office throughout the state. Our doors still are technically locked, but you can still get a hold of those employees through the phone, and then we're allowing site visits and on the farm visits to be able to meet with you. So we're just not meeting in the field offices. So we're also always looking for other ways to assist landowners as things move through this pandemic. If there's other resource needs that come up and we can figure out ways to mold our EQIP program or any of the other programs that we administer, we're looking for that opportunity as well. So if you see any of that, please bring it to our attention, and we'll see if we can't figure out some way to assist. So Jill, that's what I got.
Thank you, Rusty. Some good ideas there for people to get to their local office, so thank you. Next, let's move to Farm Service Agency Director Lois Van Mark, please.
Hi everyone. Thank you to Jill and Wally for inviting FSA to be part of this program. NRCS, Rusty's organization, and FSA, my organization, work very closely together. And in most cases around the state, our county offices are co-located together. And we too are working on the same scenario. We have doors locked, and we are taking appointments to visit with producers and encourage folks to always call ahead before you come into town, make an appointment, and hopefully we can visit with you over the phone and solve your problems. With regard to COVID, on April 17, U.S. Secretary Perdue announced the Coronavirus Food Assistance Program, or what we're calling is CFAP. That is a provision under the CARES Act that provides money directly to USDA. And there's 19 billion, that's B with a billion dollars in this program. $3 billion of the program is going to be utilized to purchase direct purchase of food, processed foods, and fresh fruit, vegetables, etc. That's being done by the Ag Marketing Service. But FSA then is taking the remainder of that 19 billion or $16 billion, and we are then working on a program to support and provide direct support to producers who have experienced prices and market supply chains that have been significantly impacted. And this is meant to help producers with additional adjustment and marketing costs if they had something resulted from a loss of demand due to the COVID-19 activities. As you've heard, a lot of meat packing plants are being closed, and so it's not that we have a food shortage, it's that the food can't get to the processors and finally get to the grocery store shelves. So there are two portions of this COVID, or of the CFAC program, and one is for crops and one is going to be for livestock. That's really about all I can tell you about that, because we're right now in the process of writing the regulations in Washington, D.C. All the SEDs were on a phone call yesterday with the administrator and others of the agency, and we've been assured that sign up will be approximately the end of this month, around Memorial Day. So we've had lots of people calling and wanting to get in. It is not a first come, first served basis. It is not a first come, first served basis. Applicants will apply, and there will be some eligibility requirements. For instance, if a producer makes less than $900,000 a year, they're going to be 100% eligible. If the AGI, or the adjusted gross income for a producer, is more than 900,000, then 75% or more of that income for that producer needs to have come from agriculture. And we have forms that folks can fill out and provide that kind of documentation. I've had some folks asking, thank you, Jill, for sending some questions ahead of time. There were some questions that were asked, is wool included in this? And I can't tell you, I don't know. I wish I could tell you for sure. I know the wool industry in this state and everywhere is having a hard time. The market facilitation program that addressed the tariffs really didn't help out wool at all. And so I know there's a livestock portion of the CFAP, and we're gonna have to go on that for now. I think I'm going to leave it at that for now, Jill, and there are a few other questions, but we can wait till the end.
Okay, thank you, Lois. And yeah, we'll address some more of those at the end as time allows. Moving on, let's get into some of the meat of the discussion here, so to say, with SBA Wyoming District Office District Director Amy Lee. You've got the floor.
Thank you, Jill, and thank you so much for inviting me to be part of the conversation here today. I'm going to share my screen as I get started on some of the conversation here today, and we'll tell you what we got. I would love to say that I was a producer as well, but I think the closest I am right now is the 100 tomato seedlings I have waiting very patiently for it to be warm enough to put them out in my garden. So I'm counting the days. And I respect all of you so much for what you do. You guys are amazing. You've probably heard about the Paycheck Protection Program. These are loans that became available through the CARES Act and through the Department of Treasury and the U.S. Small Business Administration. We've done over $1 billion of these loans in Wyoming between the first and second tranche of funding, thanks to our many amazing community lenders in Wyoming, our credit unions. They've just really hit it out of the park for Wyoming. What these loans are forgivable loans that can be up to 2 years with an interest rate of 1%, that are calculated at a maximum amount of 2 months of a business's average monthly payroll plus 25% up to $10 million. Payments are deferred 6 months, there's no collateral, and the best part is that they're fully forgiven if they're used on payroll, interest on mortgages, utilities, and rent. These are available for agricultural producers. Our size standards apply. So they're for businesses with 500 or fewer employees with a principal place of residence in the United States. And these include enterprises that are in the business of production of food or fiber, ranching and raising of livestock, aquaculture, and all other farming and agricultural related industries. We do have some alternative size standards that can be used as well. And the self-employed farmers and ranchers can use IRS 1040 Schedule F to calculate the costs, essentially their 2019 net profit. And, you know, just understanding that this has been an issue for many because of the way that farming businesses often are operated. You may not have a net profit on that schedule, and that may make you ineligible for those loans. Businesses that are looking to participate in this, I'm just going to give a little bit more information, and then I'll share the information about the EIDL loan, which could be a better option for some of you. So if you go to treasury.gov and click on the red banner, you can find information such as how to calculate loan amounts. This document will kind of go through different scenarios for you, you know, including the scenario that if you are a self-employed farmer on here. Let me just make sure I can find that for all of you. I think it's, yeah, right here, question 3. So you can kind of take a look at that question at that disaster site. There's also some great information here, such as the borrower application form. It's a pretty simple form to fill out, just 2 pages long. Includes a number of certifications that you've got to certify to, but it really is just a 2-page form. And a lot of our lenders have done just an amazing job of these. So the best place to start, if you think there's a possibility that this loan could provide some payroll support for your business for up to 8 weeks, reach out to your lender. There's all kinds of interim final rules that have been posted to try to clarify this, and we expect more information on what we think is the most important part for everyone concerned, the loan forgiveness. We expect that very soon. Now, on our disaster assistance, the big news this week is that our economic injury disaster loans, which originally became available through Governor Gordon's first request for a declaration from SBA when the whole situation with COVID-19 began, originally excluded our agricultural businesses. And we're so thrilled that the program has come back online specifically to include you. And so if you go to sba.gov/disaster, you'll see on that site new eligibility for economic injury disaster loan in advance. And so what this is this is for agricultural businesses. There's 2 components about this program. There's what we call the EIDL advance and the EIDL loan. The EIDL advance is a grant component, essentially up to $10,000 that is made available very quickly. And there's a box to check if you fill out your EIDL loan application that says, yes, I would like the EIDL advance. I would encourage you, if you apply for an EIDL loan, to do that. And that is often processed much more quickly than the rest of the EIDL loan. These loans are up to 30-year term, 3.75% interest, and they can be used for much more expansive purposes than just the PPP loan I mentioned earlier. These can be used for many working capital needs that the business could have met but for the disaster. And so you can use this for paying vendors, for paying fixed costs. You can't use it to refinance debt, but there's a lot of good uses of this program. It might be a source of capital during a very difficult time for all of us. And your submission is prioritized right now. Only agricultural businesses are allowed to submit a new application. So I want to just show you one thing about that. You can click the link to apply, and then just be very cognizant when you apply that you're checking that you are an agricultural enterprise, even should another choice be true for your business as well. It doesn't exclude that it's one of these others, but you want to really make sure you check that box, because if you don't, what we've been hearing is your application may get through the initial submission and then it possibly could get kicked out. So you really want to specify that you're an agricultural business if you apply for that. It's a pretty simple 4-page application form. If you have questions, there's a contact information for the Disaster Assistance Center. This program is run out of SBA's Office of Disaster Assistance in Sacramento, but we're happy to try to help here in the district office any way we can. And contact information for Wyoming is available at sba.gov/WY. This, just to bring up very quickly, is our district office local homepage where you can get information locally, as well as our office directory there. So with that, thank you so much, Jill. I'll turn it back to you.
Thank you, Amy. There was some really good tips, especially as you got into the application process there. So thank you very much. And as a reminder to everyone listening, there will be time for questions here shortly. So next, Wally, if you want to take the floor back over, he is our USDA Rural Development State Director. You want to let us know what's going on there, please?
Okay, thanks again, Jill. While USDA Rural Development is not directly engaged with farmers or ranchers in the same manner as FSA and NRCS or even the SBA, this agency is a catalyst for rural prosperity within the small communities in which farmers and ranchers do business. Rural development provides affordable housing, modernizing infrastructure, rural business and value-added producer grants, loan guarantees, rural economic development assistance, community assistance, and maybe the most critical of all, telecommunications and internet accessibility. The COVID-19 crisis has demonstrated that all Americans, regardless of living in a big city or living out in the country, must have affordable and dependable high-speed internet. It is no longer a luxury, but a necessity in the daily lives of farmers and ranchers as a part of their day-to-day operations. As a result of social distancing, all students must have access to connectivity to participate in classes from home, and all rural residents, especially senior citizens, must have high-speed internet to successfully utilize telehealth options rather than going to the doctor for routine office visits. Secretary Perdue has placed a high priority on providing the backbone infrastructure for real-time interactive telecommunications to benefit rural residents for the delivery of curriculum and promote the connection of students with teachers from remote sites, and new telemedicine technologies for engaging medical information for improving healthcare services to all rural residents. Rural development is actively involved in participating with internet providers throughout the state to improve internet connectivity and offering distance learning and telemedicine program. Rural residents deserve to have internet service similar to urban residents, and the sooner than later. The last slide that's going to go on the screen is the COVID-19 Federal Rural Resource Guide, which is a one-stop shop for accessing real-time financial assistance. Just Google USDA COVID-19 Federal Resource Guide as a tool to find programs and resources. Now, before I turn it back to Jill for the Q&A session, I want to thank our presenters, Stacia Berry with the Department of Ag, Rusty Swartz with NRCS, Lois Van Mark with FSA, and Amy Lee with SBA for their willingness to assist this afternoon, and to Jill with the Wyoming Business Council for coordinating this Ag Producer webinar. But most of all, I want to thank everyone who tuned in this afternoon for this webinar on such short notice, and I hope the information was helpful. A second webinar will be scheduled as soon as new or additional information becomes available. Thanks again, and I'll now turn it back to you, Jill.
Thank you, Wally. And to bring your attention back to that federal resource guide on your screen, if you go online, it really does outline a lot of the assistance and different places to go, because with all the agencies, I know it's hard to keep track of where to go for what. So that can be really helpful for everyone listening. As a reminder, if you have a question, type it in the Q&A box down below. At this time, we had a few questions that were submitted ahead of the webinar, so I'll read a couple of those. And speakers, if you just unmute yourself and take the question if it pertains to your agency, please. So the first question comes from Jerry, and Lois, you kind of touched on this, but maybe you can expand some more. Jerry asks, is there any assistance for sheep producers moving forward with the USDA announcement?
Well, with regard to the CFAP under the CARES Act, I can't answer that specifically because we have, we're still in the process of writing the rule. But I have been told, but we do know this, that the CFAP covers livestock production and it covers crop production. So sheep being livestock, I'm thinking there's going to be something there. With respect to wool particularly, I just don't know. We don't have the rule yet. When we get the rule out, then we'll be able to read through it and find that out.
Thank you. And while I have you unmuted, maybe you can take a try at the next one. The question from Dusty is, if you have a producer that has received PPP, are they also eligible to get the CFAP loan through FSA? And maybe, Amy, you know the answer to that as well.
The producers who receive PPP monies are also eligible for the CFAP money. Yes, they will not be, nothing will be accounted against them with regard to percentages of money received from one program to the other. You're eligible for both under the $900 situation. But I think there is a certain amount, and this is something you can ask about when you get to the point of applying. You're eligible, but you can't use the same money. You can't use CFAP money and PPP money to pay an employee. I don't think you can overlap those two government bags of money in essence. So, but I don't know. I don't think this is going to be difficult for producers. They're going to be able to Paycheck, pay for their employees under the PPP, and then they can use CFAP money for other things.
Thank you.
I'll just add to that if I could. That, the key concept to keep in mind there is you can't use two different federal sources of money to pay for the same cost at the same time. And so even with the PPP and the EIDL advance, you can't use the same dollar basically to pay the same paycheck more than once, right? So what I would advise is for anybody who's getting a PPP loan or an EIDL loan, an EIDL advance, a really good best practice is to We've seen some businesses open up a separate account just for their PPP money so they can track how very easily they can run an account transcript, very easily report to their lenders on how those loans were spent so that they've got very clear reporting if that's not something they're used to doing. And, you know, I think just being able to very carefully track those funds so that you'll be able to show down the road that you've spent money on different things is going to be important for anybody getting multiple sources of federal dollars.
Thank you. Any other comments on that before we move to the next one? Okay, Representative Summers asks if the $5 billion was supposed to go to livestock producers in direct payments on the new CFAP program, Lois, when will that be up and running? There was probably a few people that didn't catch the beginning of the webinar. If you would recap that, please.
Under the CARES Act, there is another provision called CFAP, and that portion of money is made up of $19 billion. $3 billion of those dollars will be used to purchase food products for families and food programs. 16 billion of that bag of money will be used as direct payments. Payments will cover livestock, and in particular with how if you've lost at least 5% in the adjustment of your payment or what money you were expecting to get for a certain group of cows, or I should just say livestock in general. And then there will be a cropping division under that. And I cannot, 5 million, I don't know. And I have no numbers. I don't know anything about particulars. And I know that there are some organizations, well-meaning organizations across the nation who have said there's this money and it's going to go for that. And the administrator assured all the SEDs around the nation yesterday that if it's not coming from USDA, it's not necessarily true. So all I can say is there's livestock money to be paid.
Thank you, Lois. We have another question from Jerry that asks, is there a website that lists what assistance is available and which agency is handling it?
I think Wally's document that he talked about, this COVID Federal Rural Resource Guide, that's going to be the best way for folks to find general information. If you want to know specific stuff about CFAP, contact via phone or email your local farm service agency. And of course, they can't really tell you much until after we start sign up, which will be about the end of this month.
I'll do a little follow-up on that. I'm just going to do a little follow-up on that. Lois is correct. On that document, what was on the screen was just the first page, and I think there's 4 pages. And basically what it is a lot of different websites that you can access on just about any program with USDA there is. The secretary set this up so it would be, as he called it, a one-stop shop. So if you had any questions on anything, that would be the website that you would access, and then there would be all the links to the other areas that you needed to look into.
Thank you, Wally. Here's a question from John. How will ag producers be notified, or how do they find out when FSA has CFAP ready to go?
Well, right now we are sending out notices to folks and newsletters. We're trying to notify all the banks, newspapers, radio stations. We have news releases that we're putting out saying something's coming, you need to wait. And then once we actually know a date, then there are counties that will call their producers individually. I don't necessarily encourage them to do that because that's a time consumer, but given, you know, right, as Rusty mentioned, we are not actually all of us are not in the office at any given time. We're rotating in and out, and many of us are teleworking. So we're trying to work out the particulars on that, but we are going to let our producers know. And if it comes down to it, giving everybody a call, then we'll do that. But looking in the newspaper, keep an eye out on the radio, looking in your mail for newsletters or postcards. A lot of times we'll send out postcards for a particular activity. So just kind of keep on the alert because it's coming around the month of the end of the month.
Thank you. And Dusty asks, what will producers need to do to apply for the CFAP? And I would add on to that, what kind of homework can they be doing now to kind of prepare themselves so they're ready when you guys are ready?
I wish I could tell you, but again, that has to do with particulars of the program that I have not been told about. Keep track of your markets and the prices and the change in your prices of what you expected to get if you were going to send some calves or yearlings or something to a sale barn, what you should have gotten, and then what you maybe did get, or what maybe you didn't sell them and you know, because you couldn't get a good price. But just try to keep track of some of the records and document that. And we think there's going to be some new producers coming in, and at that point we do have eligibility paperwork and that kind of thing to do, but for the most part we think it's not going to be very time consuming. We've been assured that they're trying to make this as producer friendly as possible, and so until it gets here we just kind of have to tread water.
And then James asks, Lois, what do you expect the turnaround time to be from when an applicant gets their paperwork to you to the time they can expect some assistance?
Yeah, it's another good question. I know that they're using a program software that they've used on another program, and they're developing that for CFAP. And I also know that when we did the tariff program, the MFP program, that really was a pretty short turnaround time. People came into the office, filled out a form, and then they self-certified everything. And I think they got stuff within a week or so. Of course, we do prefer that producers give us the information for electronic deposits right directly into their bank accounts. That makes it a lot easier and faster. If we have to send them a check, we'll do that, but that tends to slow things down. So right now, again, without the rule, we just can't guarantee anything, but we are promised by our Washington National Office that they're trying to make this as producer friendly, as easy as possible, and we're going to try to make the window as wide as we can so that folks have plenty time to come in or to call and get the kind of applications they need to have done.
Thank you. Any other questions? Well, we have lots of directors and people at our disposal here. Well, it looks like maybe we'll go ahead and wrap it up unless somebody pops one in there at the last minute. Again, I'd like to say thank you to our panelists. They really did rearrange their schedules to make this happen on very short notice. So thank you to our panelists. Thank you to the ag community that tuned in. I know we have producers, we have the lending community, members of the legislature and congressional delegation were on. Thank you for listening in. Just a wide range of people tuned in, and I hope that the information was helpful. if you do get home or think of some questions later, I encourage you to go to wyomingbusiness.org/COVID-19. We have been keeping resources available there, and you can submit a question there and I will get it back to you. And of course, you all have my email. You can also submit questions to me there. And Lois says to find Wyoming offices, you can go to the website there in the chat box. So I hope this was helpful to everyone. Again, thank you for tuning in. Thank you so much to the ag folks out there that work hard every day to make sure food is on our table. And take care and be safe.